Dear viewers, wherever you are, hello and welcome to this new episode of your program, Out of the Box. Gnostic and agnostic. Gnosticism, agnosticism. Two extremely important terms in today's life. But actually, they're not only important nowadays, they were important since antiquity. Today, we'll talk about the general definition of Gnosticism versus agnosticism, and then we'll delve deeper and talk about the Christian, Jewish, and Islamic Gnosticism. And what is their definition? And how logical or illogical are these, schools of thought? To delve deeper into the crypts of these definitions and much more, I'm really delighted to be accompanied by Sam Bayoumi, who is a writer and a researcher in comparative religions, and in particular in Islamic religion, and Bassem Nabil, who is a researcher in comparative religions too, and especially in Christianity. Sam and Bassem, hello and welcome to the program.
Yes, hi, how are you doing?
Bassem, I think you still need to unmute yourself. You're still muted.
Yeah, sorry. Hello, everyone. Hi. Hello.
Hello. So hello, Assam, and hello, Bassem again. It's a delight having both of you here. And just to start off, Sam, can I ask you to define to me Gnosticism? Just the very simple definition of Gnosticism.
Yeah, the very simple one for Gnosticism is that it's coming from the Greek stem, which is gnost, which means to know something, whatever the thing is. So it's like knowing.
It's knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, it comes from gnosis and so on. Thank you very much for that. And Bassem, how about agnosticism or agnostic? Again, the very basic definition of agnosticism.
So, as we said, gnosis is knowing. So when you add a in front of gnosis, becomes agnostic, which is basically we don't know. So it's like the opposite of knowing.
Absolutely. So just this prefix of a makes it negative, so not knowing. Okay, so let's go deeper here again now. So a Gnostic person is maybe like some people might call a dogmatic person. So somebody who believes in the dogma, in the creed, in the belief deeply, or in the disbelief deeply too. So I can be a Gnostic theist. I fully believe in the God 100%, and I can be an Gnostic atheist. So I disbelieve 100% in a God. On the other hand, agnostic is somebody who's skeptic, who's not dogmatic, he's skeptic, is not 100% sure. So if I can be agnostic, atheist, so most probably there is no God, but not 100%. Or I can be an agnostic theist. Again, agnostic theist, most probably there is a God, but not 100% sure. Okay, so Sam, if I'm a Gnostic person, what logical evidence would you need to be a Gnostic theist, and on the other hand, to be a Gnostic atheist? What kind of evidence, universal evidence, or things in the cosmos that you need to see, or in the mundane life, what kind of things are you looking for to really affirm that there is a God or there is no God?
Yes. Okay, so I think let me differentiate in the beginning between two things that might make it clearer. Belief and Gnosticism. Belief is that you believe in something without an evidence. And this brings us to the other meaning of, which is almost the other side of the coin, which Gnosticism is not really different, but it has a little of difference. Gnosticism here is a claim of knowing something. So someone who is Gnostic, I think he needs an evidence to believe in what he believes or to know what he knows. So if I'm a Gnostic person, I might ask for some evidence, like material evidence, to support my belief. So let's say if I have a belief in God, that there is a God, if I'm a believer, I will not need any evidence. Just by heart, I will believe in God. If I'm a Gnostic atheist, for example, I might need some evidence. And this is provided maybe through a religion that I follow or a message that I got from God.
So let me just, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but just to get this straight, to make sure that I totally understood you here. So you're saying that the lack of any logical belief would suffice for a believer? So like the lack of any logical explanation or any logical evidence would suffice for a believer. So if I believe, I just believe, I don't need any minor logical evidence that there is an omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent God?
I think this is it might be the Gnostic atheist. I was talking about the Gnostic theist.
Gnostic theist again. So I believe in a God because I believe there is a God. Like I believe in the hereafter. I believe in the eternal life, and then
but with a claim, like true belief is just believing in God without any conditions. But Gnosticism, in this respect, it has something accompanying the belief, which is a special claim to knowing God with a specific features, with a specific relationship, something like that, I guess.
So there is the story, like for instance, like there's a story by Ibn Tufayl, and it's called Hay Ibn Yaqdhan, or if I'd give the literal translation, it would be the life vigilant. Okay, so the life son of the vigilant. And if the the literal translation may apply for names, but you don't usually translate names. But I think the author chose this name in specific. He wanted a message through it. So in this story, there is a person who lives in a deserted area. He is not accompanied by any other person, but he is able to find the divine or God through testing different creatures, and he found a uniformity. Like there is a uniform pattern in all the different creatures. So a lion, sheep, cow, they might look different. Some of them might be herbivores, others might be carnivores. But when you get and dissect them, they all have something that bumps, which is a heart. They all have something that inflates and deflates with air, lungs. It has a liver, so kidneys. So there is a uniform pattern for all mammals or all animals, if you like. And then again, a uniform pattern for all sorts of plants, for instance. Would you say something like this can be a logical explanation? Like, do you accept this as a good explanation of the existence of a God? That there's a uniform pattern?
Yeah, I guess so, because I agree with this example, because like there is this analogy that is given all the time. It's not about Hay ibn Yaqdhan himself only, but the scholars said many times, like let's picture in mind that a person found himself on an island, for example. He would ask himself, all by himself, he would ask himself, where did I come from? What I'm doing here? And what I'm doing later on. where I'm going to. And those questions will lead him definitely that he has been brought to this place, for example, by another power, higher than him, bigger than him. Then the other question, what is he doing here and what is next, will like work out down the road. But the most important question he will ask himself, where did I come from? Who created me? Okay. Then the story will go along with what happened to Hayy ibn Yaqzan or the other people who said that when he says that somebody made me, then he would have to believe in him. And it goes on and on. So I think it's a logical analogy and example. Yeah, it's a good example for
and then there's the Platonic explanation too of what he called the first cause or the first mover.
Exactly.
So there must be something, which was later on supported by many different philosophers, including even someone like Hegel, for instance, in his Dialectics. He reached that there is the ghost or the spirit. Yes. So there must be something that did not come from something. The chicken or the egg, there must be an egg that did not come from a chicken or a chicken that did not come from an egg. Yeah. There must be a start. So would you say again that if we did not have a uniform structure of the universe again, this might be some kind of reason for me to be certain that there is no God, or that there is no one God at least?
No, I think it should lead us to think that there is a God, definitely.
If the structures are not uniform.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
If the world was not as perfect as it is, we would have thought maybe there is something wrong. Yeah.
Okay, so there's no God. Okay, thank you very much. And the other question, Bassem, is about being agnostic. What are the logical explanations for someone for being agnostic atheist or an agnostic theist?
The logic basically goes down to what's the evidence. So what's the evidence is that there's a God, or that there is a power behind the universe. So currently, the way I see it, I don't see there's enough evidence, or the way that most agnostics see it is that there's not enough evidence to conclude that there's a power behind the universe. Of course, on the other hand, the theists, they have the same evidence and they conclude a different conclusion. So it basically goes back to everyone's own conclusion. But if you go honestly with the evidence, I think the fair and honest conclusion is that there's not enough evidence to support a power behind the universe. This is the current situation. Until we lock all the secrets of the universe, we leave the question open.
So you think because there's not enough evidence that supports either side 100%, then people would choose to be in the gray area here. So I cannot affirm 100% that there is no God. At the same time, I cannot affirm 100% that there is a God. So am I understanding it correctly?
No, it's more on. So my position is agnostic atheist. So it tilts more to the side that there's no God. There's no evidence to support it. So why would you conclude that? Why would you conclude there's a power behind the universe?
And how about the flip of this? Like for people who believe that most probably there is a God, but they're not 100% sure. What is the logical explanation of such people?
It goes back to their conclusion. So both of us have the same evidence, but they conclude a different. They get like a different answer. Their answer is different. They look at the evidence in another way. It's more. I think it's more motivated with belief, not evidence. It's more belief than evidence. But if you look at the evidence without going to other, which like tilting on any belief side, you would find that there's no evidence to support it. So we have we don't need a God to regulate this universe. We know now, like physics and science has answered all the questions. How the universe is operating, how it's going on. So basically, we don't need someone to be organizing this. We have the scientific answer why this is happening and the logic and the physics behind it. But what we don't know is everything about the universe.
Mhm.
So maybe down the road we know more. Maybe down the road we would unlock more secrets of the universe.
So again, they would not choose to be even deists. So I believe that there is a God, but no religion, and that this God is really not interested. So a deist would believe that the God just made the clock, he wound the clock, set it, put it, and then he started working on something entirely different. So he just put everything in its place, set the universe to work, but he's not interested.
That's deists, yeah, deists.
That's
Yeah,
deist.
agnostic, yeah.
Is there
Deists,
any kind of overlap? Do you see any kind of overlap between somebody who's agnostic and a deist? Would one lead to the other, or do you see them as entirely different paradigms?
the deists, no, I don't see an overlap because deists, they assume or they conclude that there's a power behind the universe.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Agnostics don't see that we need that. So agnostics don't see that we need to have this kind of power behind the universe to answer most of the questions how the universe is operating. But we leave the question open. Will we find more evidence in the future? Maybe. Maybe not. Do we have enough tools to even find the answer? I doubt it. So the question remains open for the agnostics, where the deist is more going with answering the question that there is a power behind the universe.
Okay, so both agnostic theists and atheists don't have full proof, so they would leave just little window open in both scenarios. Dear viewers, let's stop for a short pause here and watch this report about the basics of Gnosticism and agnosticism. In religious contexts, the term Gnostic usually refers to a person who possesses knowledge or to someone who is certain about the existence or non-existence of a god or creator, or to a person who is certain about a particular religion or spiritual path. On the other hand, agnostics are just the opposite, and they are people who have no definite knowledge of the existence or non-existence of a god or creator, or are unsure of a particular religion or spiritual path. Some agnostics view Gnostics as those who think irrationally and are brainwashed by relying too much on heritage, stereotypes, dogmas, sacraments, revelations, creeds. On the contrary, some Gnostics view agnostics as those who think in a vain or arrogant way, and do not rationally think as they like to call themselves. And they are people who always have a prejudice or a bias towards heritage, dogmas, sacraments, revelations, and creeds. So, how do you define yourself? Dear viewers, after watching this report about the basis of Gnosticism and agnosticism, we're back with our interview. Okay, so Assam, and Bassem, now we'll talk more about the other definition of Gnosticism. So we'll go to Judeo-Christian, or some people might define it as Judeo-Christian, although I personally tend to think that there is quite a difference between the Jewish versus the Christian Gnosticism. And you may, of course, agree or disagree with me as we start the discussion. And then there is Islamic Gnosticism, which might be called by some other people Sufism. or an extreme form of Sufism. So, first question to you, Sam, like, you know, Gnostic people, they tend to believe in this dualism. So there are two strong entities that are found, and so there is an all good God. He's the God of essence. So he has the essence of everything. The essence of love, the essence of good, the essence of justice, the essence of every virtue there is. And which is, again, very much related to the Platonic, you know, like world of essences. And this God is the all good. But there is a minor God, or another God, depending on different schools of Gnosticism, who created this material world. And this material world is all evil. Anything that is material, anything that's tangible is extremely evil. So I don't believe in this world. I don't believe in governments. I don't believe in, you know, religious authorities, nothing of that sort. Don't you think that this belief is much more logical than the classic or the orthodox religious belief, where there is only one God, but this God is all merciful or compassionate, all loving, but we still see atrocities, bloodshed, raping, killing, people born with handicaps, people born with everything, and others born with nothing. So don't you think that this definition of Gnosticism is like much more logical than the classic definition of religion?
Yeah, this is a very big question, by the way. And I just remember that there was a big discussion down the history about those meanings. And let's first start with defining the broader meaning of Gnosticism. So when you go deeper in searching about the meaning of Gnosticism, you would find that it means it was an expression, a new expression given to some old religious beliefs. Okay, so it's a new expression. Okay, and we have to stop and carefully study this meaning, new expression for old beliefs, because as I believe, this is all. The whole discussion is a kind of intellectual absurdity. And this has been proven down the history. And there was a very famous discussion about the value or the benefit of discussing stuff like that between philosophers. Between, like, for example, in the Arabic or Islamic history, between Abu Hamid al-Ghazali and Ibn Rushd. Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, of course, he came before him, like a few decades before him, and wrote his book, Tahafut al-Falasifa, or the nonsense of philosophers. And then Ibn Rushd came a few decades after, and he refuted almost everything Abu Hamid al-Ghazali said about philosophy and philosophers, and he gave some value to the thoughts of philosophers from Aristotle down the road. But then came other critique to Ibn Rushd himself, and they said that he was like establishing a kind of secularism. So what I see personally, I agree, of course, with Abu Hamid al-Ghazali when he said that all philosophy is nonsense in general. Okay, not specifically, but in general. There are some exceptions, of course, but in generally speaking, philosophy itself is a kind of challenging God in somehow. Like, as a believer, I'm not a Gnostic, by the way, I'm a believer. I differentiate between belief, and Gnosticism. As a believer, 100% sure of what I have of faith in my heart. Mm-hmm. I believe that philosophy movement was a kind of challenge to the idea of God. And this boils down to a kind of distortion to human thinking, human intellectuality. Okay, so I believe that this movement of inventing ideas, inventing philosophies, inventing religions, inventing words or expressions to describe something that is already settled. Like as a Muslim, I believe that there is one God, not even, there is no chance for more than one God. It's only one God. And this God is very clear to me and clear in his message and clear in his way of contacting or connecting to me, that he sent me a messenger with all that I need to believe in him. And this has been proven correct against any challenge and against any test with empirical experiments, with like thinking, with logic, with everything. And like I have a question, just not to go more on this one. I have a question in my mind now. Before science, for the people who say that we need to see everything with science to believe in it, okay, with empirical experiment. Before science, like how did people believe or not believe? And I stop here. We're gonna come back to this later on.
Okay, so you were referring to, of course, a very classic debate between Abu Hamid al-Ghazali and Ibn Rushd, who's more known as Averroes in the Latin world. And there was a book by Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, which is The Inconsistency of Philosophers, and then Ibn Rushd answered with a book of The Inconsistency of the Inconsistency.
Yes.
And it's an ongoing debate, and you think it's absurd, actually. Philosophy is a form of absurdity. So, Bassem, from this premise here, I want to ask you, like, do you see that classic Gnosticism, before we go deeper and differentiate between Jewish, Christian, and Islamic, but just the general thought, the common denominator of Gnosticism, of dualism, do you think it's absurd? Or do you think it's at least more logical than the conventional or the orthodox or traditional definition of religion, where there's only one God who's claimed to be all merciful and all loving, but at the same time, there's a world full of cruelty and evil?
So yeah, whatever the answer is, there's always challenges with the kind of answer you have to come up with, and it's all because it's not based on any kind of physical evidence. It's all conclusions. So if I conclude that there's multiple gods, what evidence do I have? I don't. I'm just looking around what I see, and I'm trying to conclude or to make sense of it. So people see that there's evil in this world and there's good. So they concluded there's two gods. Now the monotheistic religions came over and they concluded that there's only one God, because it doesn't make sense that there's more than one powerful God. Then that means that the power is divided. So why there's more than one God and why they are fighting around? So it makes more sense for them that there is only one God that's dominating the earth. But then you're challenged with why is there evil in this world? So the Abrahamic religions had to come up with a Satan figure. They had to come up with this kind of conclusion that there's a Satan figure that's behind all of this evil in the world. So basically, they're actually like saying that there's another mini God, which is Satan, but he's less powerful than God. So I think like whatever answer you come up with, there's always this challenges and there's always this nonsense that comes up with your answer. It's all basically we're concluding and we're trying to make sense of what we see. And we don't have any kind of definite physical evidence, so it's just conclusions and conclusions and conclusions.
Okay, so going now to Gnosticism. So if we talk about like Gnosticism again is a term that maybe was coined, some people might claim in the modern times, others might claim no, it was a Judeo-Christian term, or some people might say no, it's a Jewish term, or even before that. But anyways, like if we talk about Judaism, so a lot of people would claim that Judaism started as a Gnostic religion, and then, but after the Babylonian captivity, or the, there was, or like after the corruption of the first temple, or the demolition of the first temple, there was a major shift in beliefs. So Yahweh was not perceived in the beginning as the sole God, but was seen as the God of the sons of Israel and as the more supreme God. How do both of you see this? Hassan?
About the Judeo-Gnosticism?
Yes, about the Jewish Gnosticism. Yes. So in the beginning, it was seen that, like before the Babylonian captivity, it was seen that this God is, like Yahweh is just the God of the sons of Israel, and there are other gods. Some people might claim that even Baal was worshipped by some others, or like there was there was a plethora of gods, but Yahweh was the strongest God, and he's the God of the sons of Israel.
Honestly, I see it. Did you finish the question?
Yes.
Like honestly, I can't see it outside the limits of my belief, my original belief as a Muslim. And my religion told me that there was a lot of distortion at this time from the Jews to their own religion and to their own ideas. So, like when you say that they believed in the beginning that God, Yahweh, was only the God of the children of Israel, and then they changed this down the road to something else. I see this as just, as I said before, the distortion of ideas of thought of humanity has been the norm ever since. And like when we talk later on about like Gnosticism in Christianity, for example, I would argue the same, that some people were behind, and even as the sources say, that some Jews were behind the Christian Gnosticism, and that's why they called it Judeo-Christianism, something like that. So there was a lot of distortion. So the distortion is not even new to the world. It has been around for centuries. So this is the way I see it, in the limits of my belief as a Muslim.
Okay, thank you very much. And Bassem, so how would you rate, or how would you analyze or perceive the Jewish Gnosticism?
Yeah, so the academic point of view says that the Jewish belief went through multiple developments. So it did not start with logic, with a solid kind of belief, and then it got disoriented. That's not the academic point of view. That's more a religious point of view. So the academic point of view is that they always were developing their point of view, or their theology, or their beliefs. So at the beginning, they thought, and we find evidence of that in the Old Testament. They thought that there was multiple gods, and Yahweh was one of them. So, and Yahweh is the God of Israel. So for this people, or for this community, their God is Yahweh. Other communities and other nations had their own gods. So they believed that there was multiple gods. They all existed, but their God, their own God, is Yahweh. And then this began to develop more, that Yahweh is the more powerful one. So they did not deny that the other gods existed. They still existed, but Yahweh is supreme. So we find that even in the Exodus story, where Yahweh took out his people out of Egypt, and he proved to the gods of the Egyptians that he's the more powerful and the most supreme ones. So the story basically does not deny that there's other gods, that they're the Egyptian gods. They are there, they exist, but Yahweh is more powerful. Then, as you said, after the exile, the Babylonic exile, we see through the prophets, like especially Prophet Isaiah, the idea that develops, that they started denying that even that these other gods even exist. So they shifted where, no, there's no other gods. It's only Yahweh. He's the one who created the universe, and the other gods, they basically are false gods. They don't exist. And Yahweh is the other God. And then they faced the question of, is Yahweh behind the evil in the earth, in this world? So at the beginning, of their thinking, and after the exile, they thought, yes, that Yahweh is responsible for every evil in the world. And we find these kinds of verses in Isaiah and in parts of the Old Testament. Then down the road, they started to figure out that this is not very convenient, because why would the God be all good and all evil at the same time? So they started to introduce the figure of Satan, which they actually got from Zarathustric like points of view. They thought of this dual, that there's two gods. There's an evil God and a good God. So they started to think of that Satan as the evil guy and God as the good guy. So basically, this is how it got developed down like the years. So it did not start with one kind of basic idea or theology that got disoriented down the road. No, it started with simple ideas, which developed until we reached a more complex theology and a more complex idea that we ended up at the end, like after the Babylonic exile.
Okay, so from the Jewish Gnosticism, we move chronologically to the Christian Gnosticism. And it's like the major figure is the figure of Jesus, the Messiah. So Jesus, or Yeshua, or Yeshuhua, like was seen by Gnostic people as his mother, Mary, conceived a human baby, and then once after she gave birth to the baby, then the divine Jesus became within. Like the flesh Jesus became an incarnate of the supreme good God. And then before the crucifixion, before being put on the cross, then this good God left Jesus, and the Jesus, the Son of Man, Jesus the human. And again, and we have such writings. We have the Nag Hammadi. So in Egypt, it was discovered around the 1940s in Nag Hammadi scripts. So we have scripts of non-canonical Bibles, and we have different, like the Bible of Tom, or the infancy Bible, or the Bible of Mary Magdalene, the Bible of Judas Iscariot, etc., etc., etc. And so how would you evaluate or see that, Hassan?
Like as I said, like just a few minutes ago, I believe that there has been a big movement of distortion throughout the history to many ideas, specifically the religious ideas. And this was like from like many centuries ago. And even when like if you take the Christian Gnosticism, when this idea came up, the main churches like looked at it as heretics, right? Like they saw that the people who are say that we are Christian Gnostics who believe that Jesus was a messenger, they called them heretics. So this was an attempt to correct something, and then the bigger distortion like won over them. And so the idea is, yes, there was like a continuous movement of distortion to the main ideas, the right ideas, I mean, of the right idea of God. So I can't get out of this idea. Like everything to me, down in the history, ever since God created the universe and brought Adam and Eve to the earth with the devil with them, it was the war of the devil against humanity to fulfill his pledge to God that he will make all of them non-believers. And this is the case ever since. He has his people all the time who can work for him and distort the good ideas or the right ideas of God. And this is it, I guess, in a nutshell.
Of course, just I have to again just represent all points of view here. Again, not necessarily mine, but I have to stand at an equal distance here. Like the only like extremely famous or agreed upon sect that was a Unitarian, like did not believe in the Trinity, were the Ebionites. The Ebionites were the only ones who really believed in in the lack of divinity for Jesus Christ, whether he's Lord or God. But in the Council of Nicaea, for instance, which was held in the 4th century, towards the end of the 4th century, which is one of the 4 canonical councils, and like the major argument actually was between so we have Athanasius and we have Arius, and then like there's another sort of kind of heresy or blasphemy by Nestor. But anyways, like the whole discussion was regarding the relationship of the Trinity with each other. So like did Jesus or God the Son, not the Son of God, but God the Son, did God the Son exist since the beginning of time or before any existence with God the Father and God the Holy Spirit? Or is Jesus there for eternity, but he had a beginning and then he was created from the Father, and then he created everything. He's the Logos, he's the Word. So again, going back to you, Bassem, here, how do you evaluate Christian Gnosticism?
So yeah, Christian Gnosticism, that was one of the major Christian movements at the beginning. So as you said, we had different groups of early Christianities. So most academics divide them into 4. I'm referencing here Bart Ehrman as my main reference. He's one of the top scholars in this field today. So he basically divides early Christianity into 4 groups: Gnostics, Marcionites, and pro-Orthodox, which is the group that basically succeeded, which we have now, and Ebionites. So Ebionites was, as you said, were the only ones who denied Jesus' divinity. They thought of Jesus as basically a messenger that was had proof and power from heaven, but he wasn't like a god in any kind of sense. He was just a powerful human, and he was the Messiah for the Jewish people. The other three groups thought of Jesus as a god, but they didn't think of him as the God, as you said, that existed from the beginning and that is equal with the Father. Gnostics, their idea was basically, as you said, that Jesus was a human with the divine inside him. And we humans are basically sparks of the sparks that came out from heaven or from the divine realm. And we got trapped in this materialistic world and in this materialistic body. And in order for us to escape this materialistic body and this materialistic world and go back to heaven or to the perfect state that we used to be in, we had to get knowledge, so gnosis, or the secret, or the knowledge. And they thought that Jesus was the person who gave this secret to his followers. So if you believe Jesus, in Jesus, he will tell you the secret and the knowledge that will enable you to escape this evil materialistic world and go back to like heaven and to the realm of the divine.
Okay, so last but not least in the chronological order, if we move to Islamic Gnosticism, which might be known to some people as Sufism. So according to different Sufists who lived in different ages, there was the idea of emanation, or what might be called like faid, which is like, you know, the ability to receive revelation directly. So I would receive revelation directly without any intermediaries, and I would become at one with the Lord. So I don't really need the rituals. The rituals are just for the it's like rituals are more exoteric, but there's something that is esoteric for the selected ones. And so I don't need like the 5 prayers and pilgrimage and fasting. No, that's for you know, the layman. But I would need just to, you know, it's to meditate and to become at one fully with the Lord. And I don't become divine, but I'm united with the divinity, who's the source of everything. We have some names like, you know, Ibn Arabi, for example, Al-Halag, and so on and so forth. How do you perceive that?
So again, I perceive it as, like I can say about this, that Islam was not an exception of distortion. Distortion has come also to Islam. And this was one of the distortions that came to Islam, Sufism. And specific like branches of Sufism, not all of them. Or let's say the most of them, not all of them. Because some of them are like considered okay, accepted. But most of them, they went very far with their ideas of Gnosticism, that they are the ones who know God more than anyone else, and no one else know God. They only know God. And those people have been a dagger in the back of Islam all the time, even from the time of Hashashin, at the time of Salah ad-Din Ayyubi and stuff like that. And nowadays we have some branches of them working as a dagger in the back of Islam, as I say. So it boils down also all the time to the idea of distortion. Islam was not exception to this, and this was one of those like manifestations of distortion that happened to Islam.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. And Bassem, your comment about, again, Islamic Gnosticism, and because maybe this is something you did not mention in the Jewish and the Christian, so if after you comment on Islamic Gnosticism, if you can give like your evaluation, your logical evaluation of all 3 Gnosticisms, like do you see any of them as logical or not? But please start with your evaluation of Islamic Gnosticism and then your general evaluation of the 3 kinds of Gnosticism.
Yeah, so the Sufi form of Islam is it's the one that takes more the agnostic way of thinking, where they think that material is evil, and basically you have to go with more spiritual thinking, as you said, the faith. So you try to become one with God. So spiritually, you start to concentrate at spiritual things more than doing actual physical stuff or physical practices. And this is basically how you basically get uh, like one with God, or where you get relief with God. So what I think of it, I basically think it's all there are all kinds of thinking, and there are all kinds attempts like to try to become more spiritual, to try to be less um, fanatic or less racist or less uh, gripping to the stiff kind or the very sharp kind of belief or racist belief. They're trying to be more spiritual. I find them they're all attempts that we should honor and we should respect. But I think it's more they're all thinking and concluding, and there's no evidence. So my idea is there's no evidence. It's more trying to make sense of what's good and evil. But for me as an agnostic, I don't find any evidence to support whether the Christian attempt, the Christian agnostic attempt, the Islamic one, the Jewish one. I just don't see the evidence.
And like we're
And
saying,
actually, I forgot to mention one thing. I wanted to add it to my previous note. So I said about the four Christian groups. I just forgot to mention that the four groups in early Christianity, I mentioned the Gnostics, the Marcionites, and the Pro-Orthodox, and the Ebionites. By the time of Council of Nicaea, which is at 325 AD, all three except the Pro-Orthodox, the other three were basically they lost the debate. So basically by the third and the fourth century, the group that won the debate was the Pro-Orthodox, which is basically the group that dominated after that. But this same Pro-Orthodox group had this argument that led to Nicaea, which is whether Jesus as a God. So they all agreed that Jesus was a God, whether he was equal to the Father, and whether if he was infinite and existed at the Father at all times. So that was the argument that led to Council of Nicaea.
yes, absolutely. And the Council of Nicaea was sort of governed basically by Constantine. And we had, Matthias of Alexandria, who was, like the champion of this council at that time. And there was this debate. But again, like we said, even before Judaism, and this is something we're still living in today. So it's this whole idea of becoming at one with the God. It's it's quite similar to a lot of Far Eastern and Oriental ideas, like the yin and the yang, the nirvana, samsara, and all these karma and all of these ideas again. Like until I would unite, I would know the truth, I would unite therein. Okay, so going back to your psalm here again, so if you don't believe in the theological or like the religious part of Gnosticism, be it Jewish, Christian, or Muslim, but don't you think this is the ultimate goal of any believer, that I should totally be completely secluded from the material world? And, because the original sin or the corruption of nature, or like the first distortion or the first sin, according, of course, to because the same thing is referred to in many different ways if you're a Jewish, Christian, or Muslim. But anyways, the seduction that happened to Adam, or to Eve, who seduced Adam. Again, this is a matter of controversy, who did it. But anyways, it all started because of vanity, because of love of oneself, because of arrogance, and so on, and because of materialism. Again, materialistic, the fruit, the apple, the tree of good and evil, the tree that can make you gods, according to different stories, if we take the biblical or the Quranic one. But anyways, so don't you think we should follow this example? Like, totally, forget about the materialistic world and totally forget about governments, police, army, everything like that? Isn't this the ultimate goal?
Excellent. This is a perfect question, by the way. And my answer to it, no, by no. Why? I will answer. Let's just hypothetically think that every single person on earth will do what you said. He will just forget anything materialistic and then commit himself completely to God and his relationship to God. So how will life go on? It will stop. Life on earth will stop completely. Everyone will be sitting home or in a seclusion and worshiping God. Oh, perfect, I'm worshiping God. I'm connecting to God. Then life will stop completely.
And is this something bad if life stops? Like, isn't the ultimate goal of everyone is to go to the hereafter, to go to the next life? If you're...
the question is answered by itself. Like, if life stops now, how can you continue your life on earth if you don't have services? Because you will just drop everything materialistic or material.
But doesn't the believer, but I'm sorry to interrupt again, but doesn't the believer, like, aspire to be on the other side, sooner than later? Like, okay, let life end. Let us all die. The sooner the better.
I'm coming to this. And the answer in Islam is no, because Islam is about, like as Prophet Muhammad said, live your life as you would live forever and worship God as you would die now or tomorrow. Okay? So it tells you to take care of your dunya, of your life on this earth, and take care of your relationship with God in the same level. Nothing you shouldn't drop this to the benefit of this or vice versa. And this is the reason behind all the war against Islam specifically, and of course against all religions. Those people who are behind the distortion of thought, of human thought, are willing, let's say, just not to go way from out of the box. We are out of the box, but still not on the borders. So we'll call them capitalists. Those people want people who don't believe at all. Okay? They want the society of consumerism. Because if you don't believe in God, for example, or in a deity or in a power, then you'll just live your life like that and eat and drink and buy, and this is what they want, to maximize their wealth as the definition of capitalism, the non-stop lust for maximizing the wealth. So, yeah, the Islamic answer to the question is no. We have to take care of life on earth and the relationship to God on the same level almost. Even if you give a little bit more to God, it's okay. But you don't forget your life completely.
Yes, and just to complete what you're saying here from a different perspective again, if you look at Christianity, like Jesus was a carpenter in Nazareth. And again, when he started preaching, like he started his ministry, first he got introduced to Andrew, and Andrew was a fisher. And then Andrew introduced him to Simon, Peter, and so on. They're fishermen in Galilee, and so on and so forth. So there is work. There is work. Again,
all the prophets were working.
Yes.
Like I don't forget the word for Ra'i. the
Yeah, shepherds. They were shepherds. Yeah.
shepherds. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So same thing for Moses, Aaron, and Joshua as well. They were like all workers
Yes,
with their hands, so they did not completely divorce the materialistic world.
yeah.
Again,
But Jesus stopped working actually.
pardon me?
Jesus, when he started his ministry, he stopped working.
He stopped working, but he was accompanying working people, like the people he was accompanying. So
Yeah, of course, he did not leave the. Yeah, he did not
exactly. So
leave the.
Andrew, Simon Peter, even somebody like Matthew, he was he dealt with money, with lending, and so on and so forth. But even if the kind of work they did was good or evil, still they were doing some kind of physical work.
Yes.
Yes.
And so we would say that like all forms of teachings would talk about value of work and so on. So again, the flip of this question, do you agree with the term that if we follow the Gnostic ideas, it will be just chaos and anarchy? Like, do you think that it's true, or do you think that there is something good about these ideas? Can if we implement, forget about the theological part, but if we just implement this idea of looking at anything materialistic with disdain, do you think that this can improve our life? And maybe, because a lot of people would argue that greed is the source of all evil. So if you are less materialistic, you're not greedy, you're not interested in material gain, so there will be plenty for everyone.
I don't know. I actually agree. I will agree at this point with my friend Assam. I don't believe Gnostic ideas will make your life better. And I see even like the Gnostic idea caused like a movement within Christianity, which really took it to a very, from my point of view, and lots of actually Christians' point of view, to a very bad extreme, which is basically what monks are doing in monasteries. So they basically dropped everything in their life, and they just went to live in the desert, in isolated communities. They decided not to have any kind of physical relationship with women, or like any. They decide not to get married, and if this is the way of life that everyone uh, accepted and adopted, basically mankind will cease to exist. So if we all became monks and we did not marry and we did not want to make families, and we just dropped everything and went to live in the desert, just like where monks are doing, monasteries are doing. I find this is basically it's a crazy idea. And this is not actually like a kind of the point. It's basically there's lots of Christians which see that, like basically Protestants, they find this kind of thinking is really absurd, like becoming this kind of extreme hate of materialism and just trying to become less like more spiritual and less materialistic. It's like a road that a slope that you go just you go down and there's no end to it. Concerning your question about greed, there's always laws that we have in our society to govern like things. So people who are greedy or become greedy or evil, there's laws to stop them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we have like governments, and we have democratic forms of government, and we have laws and rules to stop this kind of greed, to regulate and stop this kind of greedy or evil kind of force. So there's a balance where we can live a good quality of life, and have rules and laws to stop any kind of greed or any kind of evil force.
Yeah, so here your criticism is basically about trapping myself into a cell or just living in the wilderness. If I'm a monk or an abbot, in a monastery or an abbey, and then just, you know, and it's not only this, it's again, it's a life of both chastity and celibacy, both. So I stay away from committing adultery, and I don't even get married. So like none, no, so like no reproduction at all, which is counterproductive to the society. My last question to you, Osam, here is why do, like, aren't agnostic people better than atheist people? So, but the orthodox, or the, you know, the I would say the more like traditional or conventional view of religion would usually perceive that if you are not a believer in my religion, it doesn't matter what end are you in the spectrum. So if you are like, it's either 10 out of 10 or nothing, my way or highway. So aren't agnostic people better than disbelievers? So why are they, again, deprived from eternity, from salvation, from the kingdom of heaven, from paradise, from why?
This is another very good question. And my answer is that who said that they are deprived? Nobody said. Like a true believer, as a Muslim, of course, a true Muslim would not exclude anyone in his own thoughts, of course, from the mercy of God, because this is what Prophet Muhammad did himself when he was asked to curse specific people in his like surroundings. He said, "No, I would ask God or expect from God that He will take from them some good people." And for sure, many of them converted to Islam at this, accepted Islam in this time, and their offspring came as Muslim. And most recently, we have like many people who were fighting Islam in Holland, in Denmark, and Sweden, and they all converted to Islam all of a sudden. They all became Muslims. So the door is open, and nobody can shut it down except God. So
But a lot of people would argue again, and here I'm not talking only about Islam, but like there are some clear, you know, text in Scripture, in like Old Testament, New Testament, and Quran, and it self explains itself. So like it's in no need of interpretation. It says in clear words, whoever does not believe in this religion per se, in this way, then they are out of the mercy of God.
I agree, but when? Until they die. And as long as the human being is on earth, is alive, he has a chance.
So that's my question here. If I die agnostic, will I end up just like an atheist? Like, so there's no credit at all for me? Like, it doesn't matter?
This will depend on the last thing came to his mind, because it can change in 1 second.
Yeah, but I died, I'm not sure. I did not deny the existence of God, but I'm not sure still.
Yeah, if he's not sure, will be left to God. I can't judge it. But if he's definite about there is no God, he says no God completely, this is different. Yeah, according to what I believe, yeah, he will be in hell. But if he's not sure, this is left to God.
I understand what you're saying.
Because as I would say, that I believe that the people in this time, all humanity has been under the attack of distortion, and I consider them as what is called in Islam Ahl al-Fatra, or the people who didn't get the right Islam or the right message of Islam. I would say that they are maybe similar. So it's left to God to decide their destiny.
I understand. Yes, thank you very much. And Bassem, again, the same can be said about atheist people. Like, a lot of atheist people have frequently complained about dogmatic or like religious people of being, you know, of terrorizing them, of intimidating them, of marginalizing them. of treating them with disdain and using a lot of, foul language against them. And, but at the same time today, we very frequently see atheist people who do exactly the same. So if you're a believer and you try to join their group on Facebook, on, like Clubhouse, whatnot, you name it, you're bombarded with allegations and accusations and, like ill treatment, foul language, even if you are agnostic. So isn't an agnostic better still than a full, devout, extremist believer? So why is this extremism again? It's my way or highway.
So if I find atheists judging agnostics in this kind of way you're just explaining or describing, I think because they come back from a background, from an Abrahamic religion background. They must have inherited this way of judging from their background, whether they came from Judaism or Christianity or Islam. All three have basically told us what God thinks about that. And I respect what Mr. Assam said, that he said we basically don't know what God is going to do with that agnostic, but actually God told us what he's going to do. He told us in his books. He said we're just a little bit we're just careful. We don't want to spell it out, but he actually told us what he thinks about these kind of people. He said, whether in Christianity, he said that anyone who would not accept the Son, the wrath of God will lay on him. In Islam, it says that the only religion accepted to God is Islam. So it's very, like, God tells us in these religions what he thinks of these people. So it's quite clear. So atheists coming from these kinds of background, I'm sure they would have this. If they're not able to get rid of this background, they will still have this kind of judging that they inherited from their background. Other atheists see agnostics as just cowards, like they're coward atheists because they're too coward to say that there's no God. Some atheists think of agnostic as that, is that there are people they actually don't believe in God, but they're just too coward to say it. But the way I see it is agnostics are basically trying to be as fair as much as they can. So they're trying to be, they're trying to honor the evidence, respect the evidence that there's no evidence that there's a God, but they still want to be honest and humble that we don't know everything about the universe. So we leave the door open. Maybe down the road, evidence will change. So we just leave this kind of room.
So really, at the end of this interview, I can't thank both of you enough. I know if we stretch it more and if we go to every side topic, we can just continue forever, really. But definitely in the coming episodes during this season, we will be delving into all the different crypts of belief, disbelief, Gnosticism, agnosticism, deism, Abrahamic religions in general, and everyone, in specific. So once again, thank you very much, both of you, for being with me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It was my pleasure. Thank you. So, dear viewers, if we were to come to a conclusion here again, the whole notion of Gnostic, agnostic, again, theist or atheist, brings us again to things like racism, sexism, all forms of discrimination and segregation based on a stratified structure and a hierarchy. And because, if you have a role model or you have an icon in your mind, that you refer to as like this would be the pinnacle of belief or disbelief or whatever. People go through different phases. So life itself is not uniform. Like we have winters, we have summers, we have nights, and we have days. And everything is continuously changing. Everything is continuously relative. So again, most of the believers were disbelievers sometime, and most of the Gnostics were agnostic sometime. So really, if I would, it's just like me saying I need to get an eraser and just erase the Indian civilization or the Chinese civilization, the Arabic civilization, or the Roman civilization, or whatever. Okay, but are you ready to erase at the same time the heritage of this civilization on humanity? Because if we just do this, we will go at least 200, if not 500 years back. Because most of the state-of-the-art inventions you and I are enjoying today, and the convenience of modern life is thanks to the collective human thought from all different four corners of the globe, really. This is where modern life came from. Same thing again for thought, for belief. It would be nothing but intellectual and psychological terrorism to treat someone who has belief or disbelief, or they're like they're a little bit skeptical, did not make up their mind, so they're agnostic, to treat them with disdain. You know, again, it's the biggest sin, really, or the biggest vice, if you like, in an unreligious term, would be vanity and arrogance. Dear viewers, until we meet again, I hope you have a very pleasant time. Thanks for watching.